Let go of the shore and float into the mystery. Really? I really have to float into the mystery? I don't know about you, but that does not sound really fun sometimes. Floating into the mystery, when you think about letting go of the shore, and you're just going to float and trust and know that you're going to be okay. I get a little scared sometimes. I don't know about you. Because sometimes when you just let go, it's like you just have to trust. It's like the ultimate trusting. Oh, I'm just making some little noises, aren't I? Just like this. So for me, I learned that the ultimate trusting, the ultimate thing that I felt like was holding me was water. Have you ever been in water where you just like lie back and you can feel yourself being held? To me, that water always felt to me like it was God, like it was spirit. Like when I allowed myself to go in the water, I could just feel being held and being loved and nurtured. I didn't have to try and struggle. So today I want to talk to you about lessons I learned from the water. Because I've been a swimmer since I was 6 years old. When my father was a competitive swimmer, and he had this idea that he would stick his kids, his 2 daughters, in competitive swimming, and we would learn everything we ever needed to know about life. He didn't have to do anything. I would just learn it from the water. And in a way it was kind of true. But when I was first starting out, I wasn't like quite so sure of this, because I started when I was 6 years old, being in a little swim team down in Southern California. And I just grew up having red eyes, always, because back then we didn't have goggles. And I always smelled like eau de chlorine. People would have me and go, oh, you went swimming today. I mean, it would just be like this disgusting thing. I would just always smell like chlorine. But the thing is, it gave me this place to land. When I didn't know who I was, what I was doing, I had swimming. I had my friends from swimming. I had my swim team. I had my little life. And you know what's really interesting to me, as I talk to you about these sort of life lessons I've learned today, is that if you think about a rope, and you put your hands together and the rope goes like this. It's just kind of, it doesn't have much energy, but as soon as you pull that rope, it has this through line, it has energy. That's what swimming gave to me. It gave me every single month I had a swim meet to look forward to. I had something that I was training for. But when I was, swimming, I'm in this world of swimming all the time. At some point when I was in high school, I got to this point where it was like I wanted to be a normal kid. I wanted to not have red eyes and smell like chlorine, and I wanted to go to the mall and hang out with girls and have pizza parties, but I was always training 4 hours a day. And so I came to my father, and in this very dramatic way, I just said, I'm done, I'm finished, I don't want to swim anymore, this is it. And he said, oh, let me tell you, he let me rant and rave, and he said, if you only knew what I know about when you're older, that you're going to look back on this time and you're going to thank me, and you're going to say, yes, Dad, I know what you mean. But back then, I'm 16 years old, I'm like, whatever, okay, fine. So I stay in swimming. I don't know what I'm doing, but I stayed in swimming. And then I was such a good swimmer, I became captain of the boys' swim team, which was really interesting because you're in a little Speedo and you're feeling completely self-conscious, and the boys would go down to the bottom of the pool and look up at me with their goggles, come by a swimming butterfly, and they'd be, just going, woo! So, this is what I did. But when I was about 20, so I swam all the way through high school. When I was done, when I was 18 years old, it was like, that's it, I'm done, no more, I quit. And I went on with my life, did other things, but it was really when I was about 24 years old, I think. I had just broken up with a boyfriend, and I was having a pity party for myself. And my sister said, why don't you just go swim? It'll make you feel better, why don't you swim? I was like, I don't want to swim again, ugh. But I went to this club, and of course there were some cute guys there, so I thought, oh, maybe this is different as an adult. And I joined this swim team over in Marin and started swimming, but the first time I got in that water, it was like my spirit literally just went, ah, you're home. It just felt like being back in that place of just being held. And so what happened for me was I joined this team, and the very first race that I was asked to be part of was swimming across Lake Tahoe as a relay team. And I had never been in cold water. I had never been in open water. And when I jumped out, the people on the boat said, "Oh, don't worry, you won't be able to breathe for about 5 minutes. Just don't worry." Oh, no problem. No problem at all. So I do this swim, but it was so incredibly exciting because I could look back at where we came from. And it felt like something tangible, like I had done something as opposed to just back and forth, back and forth. But what happened for me then was I got so into this that I thought, I want to swim Alcatraz and the Golden Gate Bridge, and I want to do all these things. And I found out that there was this club at Aquatic Park. There's the South End Rowing Club and there's the Dolphin Swim Club. And so I joined the Dolphin Club with the idea in mind of swimming from Alcatraz. And I started doing all these swims, and it also showed me too, one of the other interesting life lessons is that the day after I accomplished that goal of swimming from Alcatraz, the water felt so much colder because like the goal was accomplished. The goal was accomplished. So it's so fabulous because it's like I did this goal and the next day it was like, did the water go down 10 degrees? What's happening? But that just shows the power of your mind, of getting in there. And what's so fascinating about cold water especially is that when you get into cold water, and we have a few bay swimmers here with me today. I've never done this. This is a brand new talk, and doing it in front of swimmers is really exciting. But the thing that's really interesting, and you all will attest to this, is that when you get in the water, there is this wall you hit of cold. And most people will look at that wall and go, "I don't think so, thanks for sharing."
That's me.
But what we know is on the other side of that, it's a portal. It's a portal that you go through. That when you go through it and and this is one of the main lessons I've learned in my life. You know that expression, whatever you resist persists. But when you go through this portal and you relax into it, you breathe into it, you become one with it, you accept it, you allow it, whatever it is. It's like all of a sudden this doorway opens and you get on the other side of it and it's nirvana. And look in your life and think about what are all the different things that you've gone through in your life that were hard and challenging and you couldn't do it. But when you somehow moved through it in whatever way that was, whether it was just breathing into it or looking at it and saying, I can do this, whatever it is, you got to the other side. You got to the other side. But what's so fabulous and fascinating about this process is that there are so many different ways that people will approach going through this portal. There's this one woman I know at the Dolphin Club who will literally go ankles, knees. She'll just go like this and this. It takes her like 45 minutes to get in the water. Yeah. I think that would be excruciating, but that's her. I mean, I'm coming back in for my swim and she still hasn't even gotten in. Then there are other people who pace, who do this. They just keep looking at the water like this, like it's going to change color or change degrees and just change it. They'll just go back and forth and back and forth. Then there are people like me who look at the water and go, okay. And then I usually scream and I swear like a sailor, just have to say, but I get in. And once I get in and I breathe and I allow it to be this place of just surrendering and letting go, I then move into this nirvana state that you look at all the people on the shore that are looking at all of us crazy people going, how are they doing that? They're crazy. But you get into this place and the endorphins kick in immediately and you get completely stoned is what happens. You get completely high from doing this. Because it's the cold water makes everything just come alive. And what's really interesting, especially at my club, I don't know about the South End, but we have a lot of old timers at our club that literally feel, and they've said this to me over and over, they have it rigged up in their mind that if they get in that water every day, they're going to stay alive. That they believe that the cold water just puts this, adrenaline and endorphins through their body, and that's what keeps them young. So there's one guy who's in his 90s who he goes out, he's this little frail thing, he goes out and he just swims, he goes to he sees where the tide is coming in and he just goes there, he walks in and lets it float him back. And I look at that and think, I can learn from that. He just looks at where the tide is going and he floats. He barely moves his arms. So have you ever looked at a swimmer who doesn't know how to swim very well? they thrash. They put all this motion. There's so much more energy going out, and they're practically drowning. If you watch Michael Phelps swim in these Olympics, it's really fabulous to watch how, when he's doing butterfly, there's literally like hardly any splashing. His hands go in such precision. So once again, another life lesson. Let it be easy. The biggest lesson I've ever learned about swimming is let it be easy. When you make things so much harder in life, if you think about, just imagine a swimmer who doesn't know how to swim, and they're getting out of breath, and they're doing this because they're not relaxing into it. A lot of it is that panic, oh my God, I'm going to drown, so I better thrash more. And what happens? You wind up getting so tired. The more you allow yourself to just float, let the water hold you, support you, you won't drown. But it's allowing ourselves, I'm going to speak for me, allowing myself when I'm making things be so much harder than they need to be. Anyone have this, or is it just me? Because I can see yours. When I allow myself to just look at, am I thrashing around right now? What am I doing with this problem? Or, with taxes. Every time I do taxes, I'm just like that person who's just going back and forth and back and forth. Just jump in and do it. And so I have a song, let it be easy, let it be easy. I'm going to trust my voice to just let it be easy. Let that voice, let that water hold you, and let it just be easy and float. So one of the greatest lessons I ever learned about presence was from swimming. I was usually one of the top 5 finishers in all of the different races we would do around the bay. And so the race I did every year was the Golden Gate Bridge, and there was this guy named George on my team that we just had this thing, and he always would come up to me right before a race and go, okay, Drucker, I'm going to get you on this one. And I'd go, okay, George, it's you and me. And we'd have this thing, and we would like battle for who's out there, and you have this big cluster of people going out, and then all of a sudden, everyone's just dispersed in the water. And we have boats next to us, and making sure everyone's okay. But everyone just disperses, even though, you're swimming underneath the Golden Gate Bridge or Alcatraz. But every time I could just count on looking to my right, and here's George with his thrashing arm, and he's like out to get me. So one time we're doing this race, and we're battling it out. We're about halfway across the Golden Gate Bridge, and I look, and he's not there. And I just kind of stop, and I look, and I see him. He's back here, and I swim back to him. And I go, George, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm doing water ballet. And I go, George, we're in a race. What are you talking about? And he goes, Karen, when are we ever underneath the Golden Gate Bridge looking up at it? Why would we put our heads down and try and get from this side to that side as fast as we can? Why don't we stop and look and breathe it in? Isn't this gorgeous? And I'm like, but George, And so all of a sudden, George and I start to do this, and we're doing little synchronized swimming, and we're just playing. And all the people that we're in front of stop and go, what are you people doing? And they're all freaking out. And so some people are like, good, I'm finally going to beat them. And they just go crashing away. And then other people said, we said the same thing to them, and all of a sudden we had about 20 people just, prancing around in the water. And I have never, ever swum the same way again. Every race I do, from that moment on, I was never in the top 5 anymore. Because I said, I want to enjoy this. I want to look around. When are you in the middle of the bay, looking, leaving Alcatraz Island and swimming to San Francisco? Why would I put my head down and not look up? And how do we do that in life? How often do we do that in life where we're just not present? My husband and I walk in Muir Woods usually once a week. And sometimes we're doing the same thing. We're just like power walking. And then one of us will stop each other and go, are you here? And we'll stop and we'll just look up at the redwoods and breathe and surrender into it and go, now I am. So I invite you to look at what are the things that you're doing in your life that you go like this way and just expand out. The other thing it taught me was about trusting your intuition. I'm one of these people that sometimes would be influenced by other people's opinions. And this came true on a particular day when every New Year's Day we have a swim. Both clubs do the New Year's Day Alcatraz swim. But in order to qualify for the swim, you have to do 2 legs around Aquatic Park. You have to swim 2 times around to make sure that you're going to be good on New Year's Day to be out there for 30, 40 minutes. So I made a goal for myself of getting to, I knew I wasn't going to swim on New Year's Day because it's just, I didn't have any desire to do that. I was going to work late the night before, wasn't going to do it. But my birthday fell on the day of the swim, and I thought, that's my goal. I'm going to swim all the way till December 19th, and and I'm going to make that my goal. So my goal was just to do 20 minutes, 1 time around. Good enough for me. That was my birthday present to myself, that I went that far. So I did, we all go off, we're swimming around, and when it came time to do my 1 lap, I started to get out, thinking, I'm good, good. There was one guy on the dock, another type like George, who goes, Drucker, you're such a wuss. And I'm like, I am not a wuss. He goes, what are you doing? You're copping out. I do not cop out. So what do? I go back in the water again to do the 2nd leg, to prove to this guy that I'm not a wuss. So now I'm going halfway around, and what happens when you get hypothermia is all of your energy, all the warmth goes right into your core, so that your arms don't work very well anymore. They're like 2x4s. You're just kind of doing this. So all of a sudden, I start to have this sensation, and I look back at the dock where I'm going to eventually get to, and it's like a Fellini movie going, no, like this back and forth, and I'm knowing I'm in trouble. But now I just try, and as much as I can, just get to the end, because God, I'm not going to be a wuss. But what happens is, I come in, I get off, I somehow make it to the end, to the finish line, and I looked at my watch right at that moment. It was 9:43 in the morning, which is when the moment I was born. Wow. And I knew that I was in